So this is part 2 of our Flickr application, and it's actually a 3-part set of videos to complete this. What we're doing is we're adding a basic graphical user interface to this application using the recycler view so that we can get our photos listed. We can show thumbnails on the screen and scroll through them and sort of see a title associated with that as well. So this is video 1 of 3 of this section. Okay, so let's get into our project. First thing we need to do is go into our build script, our Gradle build script, and add some support or add a compile option for our recycler view, which we're going to be using for this app. Go to the build Gradle. We're going to type compile, single quote com.android.support, colon, recycler view. Case is important here. Make sure you're entering things as I'm entering in lowercase. 0 dot plus, like so. And that gives us a support for recycler view, which comes out of the V7 support libraries. And what will happen is the Android Studio will automatically sort of download those or use those now that we've used that reference. So usually what you have to do when you go into a Gradle script like this is you need to do a rebuild so that it finds that, it sort of resyncs with it. So that shouldn't take long, and we would have got some errors if there was a problem, so that looks okay. Next thing we need to do is download the software jar file, the library we're going to be using, which is called Picasso. So I'm going to go to my browser and do a search for Picasso Android images. And the first result should be this one here, square.github.io/Picasso. And you can see here that Picasso was a powerful image downloading and caching library for Android. So you can see with one line of code, it'll do this work for you, which is fantastic. And it talks about some of the common pitfalls of traditionally downloading images, which would normally be done with async task, which we've used in the past. And it just offers a much superior and simpler way of doing it. So all we need to do to support it, or get support for it, is download the jar file. Copy that, and I'm going to go to my project and copy it in there. So I'm going to go into my app folder, into my libs, and I'm going to put it in the lib folder. And we'll see that when we go back to our project shortly. The other thing we need to do is we need to download a placeholder graphic. Now what this file is, it's going to be used while we're downloading the real images that we're going to be showing on screen. So it's sort of like a temporary image that is shown and sort of occupies the space that our image that we download is going to occupy. And it just sort of keeps the view that we're seeing on the screen a lot tidier. So literally any graphic will work for this. So I'm just going to do a search for placeholder image Android and just grab the first one. An image. I'm just going to grab this one literally. Doesn't really matter what size it is or whatever because it's going to be resized. I'm going to save that to my downloads, and then I'm just going to copy it into my drawable folder. Okay, so I'm going to go to my folder. There's the placeholder. And if I go back into my directory structure, Flickr browser, app, SLC, main, RES, so resources, and drawable. And I'm going to paste that in there. So that's the 2 files that we're going to use for this project, and you'll see that placeholder in use later on and it'll make more sense then. So okay, let's go back to Android, and just to confirm, if we have a look in these folders now in drawable, there should be our placeholder, so you can see it's there. And if we go up to our lib folder or libs folder, Picasso's there. So that's good, it's found that okay. All right, next we need to create a new layout file. And this layout file is going to be our layout file that's going to show the thumbnail and the title for our images. So we're going to go to the resource folder, into the layout folder, right click, new, layout resource file, and I'm going to call it browse.xml. Press enter. Then I'm just going to double click to give us a bit more space. And I'm going to go to the text view by clicking text. And what I'm going to do now is Command-Alt-L, which I believe is Control-Alt-L on a Windows machine, and press enter, and that just reformats it. So get into the habit of doing that, it's actually quite handy. Now with the width and height, the width we're going to say match parent. So in other words, we're going to use whatever space the parent gives us. But with the height, we're going to use wrap content, which really sort of just means only use what we need, a little bit more than what we need. And the other thing is the orientation is going to be horizontal because we want the image to show on the left-hand side. Go back to the design view here. We want the image to show here on the left-hand side, and then the title, the information about that image to show here. So therefore, we don't want to be stacking items down that way. We want them to go across. Or to be clearer, we do want our items to be stacked down, but each individual photo, we want the image to be here and then the text associated with that to be on the right hand side. But then with the next photo, of course, that will then be stacked down, if that makes sense. Okay. So that has to be horizontal. And we need a bit of padding as well. So we'll just put, say, 2 device density independent pixels. That will do for now. Okay, so first things first, in here we want an image view. That's going to be our thumbnail. And we've got ID. We'll just call that thumbnail. Nothing original there. We're going to layout align that. So Android layout align parent top equals true. So we're going to align it to the top. And we're going to set the layout gravity to be center and horizontal because this is a horizontal layout effectively. We want to make sure that we're centering it towards that way. The other thing we're going to use a scale type because as you can imagine, some of these photos would be quite large and we don't want them to fill the screen. We want them all to be sort of scaled down to the size that we've got, we're going to allocate for it effectively. So we're going to do fit center to start with, which means we're going to scale down the image, and if it's smaller than the amount allocated, we're going to center it. But if it takes up more than what it was going to take up, it'll use only that amount of space. So I'm going to use fit center. So we need the width, layout width. Oops, that should be width. And let's start with, say, 70, we'll make it 80 density independent pixels. And likewise for layout height, let's start with 60 and see how we go with that. And the last thing we want is the placeholder file. So we're going to put source equals @drawable placeholder. So the placeholder file is going to be used as a default image. Then we will overwrite that image as we've downloaded it. So that's our image view, but of course we've also got the text we want to add as well, and the text is going to be a text view. So I'm going to put, we'll come back to those shortly. We'll put an ID in here first. ID equals ID, and we'll call this one title, seeing as that's what it's called in the object. And width, we're going to put wrap content, so we're only going to use what space we've got. We're not going to try and use any more, just the space we need essentially. And we're going to put a left margin in. We're going to put a left margin of 8 density independent pixels, and that's the space between the image and where the text starts. We don't want the text to be sort of flush against the image because that doesn't look good, so we want a bit of a gap there, so that's what that is. Then we also want to put Android layout align parent top equals true. So we want to put it as high up at the start as we can. Android as layout underscore align parent left equals true, and that's where we're going to align the text as well. The sort of top left effectively is what we're going to do. Then the only other thing is because this text can be a little bit longer, it's going to be longer than one line possibly. Let's go with max lines equals 3, and I've got a typo there. Oops. Okay, and that should be Android. Keep it happy. Okay, so that's our file. And if we go back and have a bit of a look, can't see much though, but we can see our placeholder image there. That's the default image, and obviously we haven't got any default text at the moment, but that's where the text is going to be displayed as well. Okay, so that's looking good. So we've got a layout now. So next we'll go back to our project, and what we need to do is create a new class. Now the new class is going to be sort of working in conjunction with our new recycler view. So if you think about it, we've got a view where our data is ultimately going to be displayed, and we've got our photo object, if you recall, we created in the last video, and that's got our videos. Well, essentially each one of these photo objects, which is stored in an array list, will have an individual photo. So what we need to do is have some sort of way of getting those photos into the view. And that's what the recycler view holder object does. It's used to connect the two together, essentially. So what we need to do is create a new class. I'm going to call this one Flickr Image View Holder. Flickr Image View Holder. Okay, give myself a bit of space here. And that extends recycler view dot view holder. And just to be clear there, you can see the import is using the android.support.v7 widget, which is good. Okay, so we need a couple of things here. We need an image view and a text view. And of course, these are ultimately going to contain the graphics, or the, in the thumbnails case, the image we're downloading. Oops, image view, I should call that. Getting confused there. And protected text view, and we'll call that title. So they're the two fields that are going to ultimately store the thumbnail and the text from our Flickr images. And we now need to have a constructor. So I'm going to do Command N and create a constructor. Now that's not technically quite right, but we'll use that as the default and we'll change that. So we'll change the thumbnail and we'll just call this view. Sometimes it's quicker still to use those default constructor creations rather than typing. The first things first, in our constructor, we want to initialize the subclass. Now this thumbnail equals, of course it's an image view. Now we want to find the image view. So it's view.find by ID, r.id. And of course in this case it's going to be thumbnail. That's going to be our thumbnail. And we need to do the same, of course, for our title. But that title is obviously a text view. So it's view.find view by ID, r.id. title. And that is literally all we need. It's really just a container, as you can see, that enables us to transfer the contents of the thumbnail and the title into these variables. And we'll see more on that in a sec. Okay, next thing we need to do is create our adapter. Now, if you recall, an adapter actually stores all the data side, and it's used to sort of manipulate the data, and it works in conjunction with the view to display the data on the screen. So the view will be constantly talking to the adapter to update itself, essentially. So we need to write that functionality, and of course we're going to be using the new recycler view to do that. So I'm going to call this one Flickr Recycler View Adapter. Recycler View Adapter. And this one extends recycler view dot adapter. Whoops. Extends, I should say. If I can spell it would be a good thing. Extends and dot adapter. Now adapter, we need to specify the type, and of course we just saw that view holder we just created. That's going to be a Flickr image view holder. So that's going to be the object that sort of is used in this adapter to sort of connect the two things together. Alright, I think this video has gone on long enough, so I'm going to stop this video here and we'll continue this in the next video.